Tennessee contests disabling inmate's heart device at hospital on execution day. The state of Tennessee is currently engaged in a significant legal battle concerning death row inmate Byron Black. This dispute centers on a judge's recent order regarding Black's medical condition. The state has formally appealed this judicial directive. The order specifically addresses the deactivation of an implanted heart device within Mr. Black. This medical intervention is deemed necessary prior to his scheduled execution. The legal proceedings are unfolding with considerable urgency. Byron Black is slated to die by lethal injection on August 5th at 10 a.m. This impending date adds a critical time constraint to the ongoing legal arguments. The precise timing and location of the device's deactivation have become the focal point of the entire controversy. This core dispute raises complex questions about medical ethics, correctional procedures, and the administration of capital punishment. The state's appeal seeks to overturn the judge's specific instructions. The outcome will have implications for future cases involving inmates with similar medical conditions. Please like and subscribe if you're new to the channel. Byron Black's medical condition and attorney's arguments. Byron Black has a serious medical condition requiring an implanted cardioverter defibrillator. This device is crucial for managing his cardiac health. It is a standard medical implant designed to regulate heart rhythm. His legal team has presented a critical argument regarding this device. They contend that the cardioverter defibrillator could continuously shock him during the lethal injection process. This scenario raises profound concerns about the nature of his death. Attorneys argue that such continuous shocking would inflict unnecessary suffering upon Mr. Black. This potential outcome directly challenges the constitutional prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. The legal team emphasizes the importance of preventing any additional pain beyond the execution itself. The cardioverter defibrillator itself is a small, battery-powered electronic instrument. Its function is to monitor heartbeats and deliver electrical pulses or shocks when necessary. This technology is designed to correct life-threatening arrhythmias. The device is surgically implanted, typically positioned near the left collarbone. Its placement is a routine medical procedure for individuals with specific cardiac needs. The implant is a permanent fixture, continuously monitoring the patient's heart. Crucially, the device can be deactivated using a specialized handheld machine. This process is non-invasive and relatively quick. It involves placing the deactivation tool over the implant site. Black's attorneys emphasize that deactivation must occur immediately before the execution. Their reasoning is rooted in the possibility of a last-minute reprieve. Deactivating the device too early could lead to an accidental death if the execution is stayed or commuted. They argue that premature deactivation would effectively constitute an unauthorized execution. This position highlights the delicate balance between medical necessity and legal procedure. The timing of deactivation is therefore not merely a logistical detail, but a matter of life and death. States' counter-arguments and concerns regarding deactivation. The state of Tennessee disputes the claim that any potential shocks from the device would be felt by Black. They argue that the lethal injection drugs would render him unconscious and insensate. This position challenges the premise of unnecessary suffering. The state claims that deactivating the device just before the execution is logistically difficult. They cite the complexities of coordinating medical personnel and security protocols at the precise moment. This logistical challenge forms a key part of their objection. They also argue that such a procedure, performed at the last minute, could be potentially dangerous. Concerns include the risk of complications or unforeseen issues in a high-stress environment. The state prioritizes the smooth and secure execution process. Black's doctors have reportedly refused to come to the prison to deactivate the device. This refusal stems from ethical considerations regarding participation in an execution. Medical professionals often adhere to principles that prohibit actions directly facilitating capital punishment. Given this refusal, the state proposed an alternative solution. They suggested taking Black to a hospital for deactivation the day before the execution. This proposal aimed to address both the medical necessity and the ethical concerns of the doctors. The state's position underscores their desire to manage the process efficiently and securely. They seek to avoid any last-minute complications or ethical dilemmas for medical staff. Their proposed solution was intended to be a practical compromise. Judicial orders and state's appeal regarding transport. A judge initially ordered the state to turn off the device in the minutes just before the execution. This ruling reflected the attorney's argument about the risk of premature deactivation. It placed the responsibility for deactivation squarely on the state at the 11th hour. However, the judge later adjusted this order. The revised mandate required a hospital visit on the morning of the execution, August 5th. This modification aimed to accommodate the medical professional's ethical stance and ensure proper deactivation. The state's current appeal centers on overturning this adjusted order for hospital transport. They are challenging the judge's authority to mandate such a transfer. The appeal seeks to revert to a state-controlled deactivation process or to avoid the hospital visit entirely. The state claims that transporting Black to a hospital on execution morning poses significant security risks. They argue that such a high-profile transfer could attract unwanted attention. This concern is central to their opposition to the judge's revised order. These risks, according to the state, include potential disruptions from protesters. They anticipate demonstrations outside the hospital, creating a volatile environment. The state is focused on maintaining order and control throughout the execution process. The state asserts that the transport would create chaos and endanger personnel, hospital staff, and the public. They envision a scenario where security is compromised and public safety is at risk. This dire prediction underpins their appeal. Furthermore, the state argues that the lower court judge lacked the authority to issue the order for hospital transport. They contend that such a directive oversteps judicial bounds. This legal argument challenges the very foundation of the judge's ruling. The Tennessee Supreme Court is fast-tracking the appeal. The urgency of the execution date necessitates an expedited review. This rapid judicial process highlights the critical nature of the dispute. The court's decision will determine the final protocol for Mr. Black's execution. It will also set a precedent for how similar medical and logistical challenges are handled in future capital cases. The legal community is closely watching the proceedings. Byron Black's attorney's rebuttals. Kelly Henry. Kelly Henry, Black's attorney, has strongly countered the state's assertions. She argues that the state has presented no credible evidence of security risks. Her position is that the state's claims are speculative and unfounded. Henry notes that state officials were the ones who made the proposed time and location public. She implies that any security concerns are self-inflicted by the state's own disclosures. This point shifts responsibility for potential disruptions back to the state. She argues there's no significant difference in risk between transporting Black the day before or the morning of the execution. Henry suggests that the state's security concerns are inconsistent. The timing of the transport, she contends, does not inherently alter the risk profile. Henry emphasizes Black's frail condition, stating he cannot walk. She describes him as a 69-year-old man, highlighting his physical vulnerability. This portrayal aims to undermine the state's claims of him posing a significant escape or security threat. She dismisses the idea of a ruckus from peaceful protesters as unbelievable. Henry suggests that the state is exaggerating the potential for disruption. She implies that the state's concerns are a pretext for avoiding the judge's order. Her arguments underscore the defense's view that the state is creating unnecessary obstacles. The defense maintains that the hospital visit is a reasonable and necessary accommodation. They believe the state's objections are not based on genuine security threats. The attorney's rebuttals aim to dismantle the state's legal and factual arguments. She seeks to ensure that Mr. Black receives appropriate medical care before his execution. Her focus remains on preventing any unnecessary suffering. The defense's position highlights the tension between state security interests and inmate rights. This case brings to the forefront the ethical dilemmas inherent in capital punishment. The legal battle continues to unfold with significant implications. Background and broader context. The Clay family murders occurred on March 28, 1988, when 29-year-old Angela Clay and her two daughters, Latoya Clay, age 9, and Lakeisha Clay, age 6, were murdered inside their house in Nashville, Tennessee, United States. The perpetrator, Byron Lewis Black, who was Angela's boyfriend, attacked the Clays while he was on work release for a prior incident in which he shot and wounded Angela's estranged husband. Prior to the triple murder, 29-year-old Angela Clay was separated from her husband, Benny Clay, the father of their two daughters, 9-year-old Latoya Clay and 6-year-old Lakeisha Clay. Angela had a relationship with another man named Byron Lewis Black. In December of 1986, Black was involved in a dispute with Benny, whom he later shot and wounded in the shoulder. As a result, Black was convicted of a felony and sentenced to 2 years imprisonment with work release allowed. On March 28, 1988, while Black was temporarily released due to his work release schedule, he entered Angela's Nashville dwelling at 1101 Wade Avenue, Apartment B, and killed all 3 inhabitants. Both Angela and Latoya were shot inside the master bedroom, with Angela being shot once in the head while she slept, dying within minutes. Latoya was shot in the neck and chest from about 24 inches, dying in 3 to 10 minutes. Inside the second bedroom, Lakeisha was shot in the chest and the pelvic area. Forensic examination showed that she tried to defend herself before being shot from a distance of 6 to 12 inches, dying from the gunshot wound to her chest between 5 and 30 minutes later. The police discovered the dead bodies after Angela's family members made a report out of concern for the victims. Investigators eventually questioned Black as a suspect, although there was lack of biological evidence connecting him to the crime scene. But detectives later matched the bullets found in the victims to the bullet Black fired at Angela's husband Benny Clay years earlier. Black was therefore arrested and charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder on April 21, 1988. In December 1988, the prosecution formally announced that they would seek the death penalty for Black. Despite his attempt to avoid trial on the grounds of mental incompetency, Black eventually stood trial on February 27, 1989, with jury selection commencing that same month. Black, who denied murdering the Clays, reportedly put up a defense of an alibi and also claimed at one point that he was innocent and also found the dead bodies inside the house. On March 8, 1989, a Davidson County jury found Black guilty of all 3 charges of first-degree murder. Benny Clay, the father of the girls and Angela's husband, stated that the verdict was the best birthday present for his younger daughter Lakeisha, whose 7th birthday fell on the date of Black's guilty verdict, while Assistant District Attorney Eddie Barnard described the murders as the most atrocious triple murder that a jury ever came across. The sentencing trial of Black commenced the next day, with the prosecution continuing to pursue capital punishment for Black. On March 10, 1989, for solely the charge of murdering Lakeisha Clay, Black was sentenced to death via electrocution by Judge Walter Kurtz upon the jury's unanimous recommendation for capital punishment. However, the jury deadlocked on imposing the death penalty for the murders of Angela and Latoya Clay. As a result, Judge Kurtz also handed Black 2 consecutive life sentences for these other 2 killings, in addition to 15 years for burglary and 5 years each for 2 counts of criminal use of firearms. Black was scheduled to die by electrocution on November 20, 1989, but the execution was stayed to allow Black to appeal the sentence. Black's case marked the 5th case in 6 months where Davidson County prosecutors sought the death penalty. Black was found guilty of all 3 counts of first-degree murder in March 1989 and was subsequently sentenced to death for murdering Lakeisha while receiving 2 consecutive life sentences for the murders of Angela and Latoya. He appealed his conviction and sentence, and after exhausting his appeals, he sought to have his death sentence commuted on the grounds of intellectual disability, but these appeals were also denied. Currently, Black remains on death row at the Riverbend Maximum Security Institution, with his execution date set for August 5, 2025, as ordered by the Tennessee Supreme Court. Arguments for the deactivation of a medical pacemaker were brought up to lower courts prior to execution. Siding with Black that has a medical device could cause unnecessary pain during the procedure. Issues arose when medical staff from nearby institutions rejected taking part in any form of the execution. This decision was then appealed by the higher courts in arguing that this is a form of stay of execution that the lower courts had no jurisdiction to impose. Byron Black was convicted in 1988 for the shooting deaths of his girlfriend and her 2 daughters. These heinous crimes led to his death sentence. The severity of his offenses is a critical part of his case's history. His case has undergone numerous appeals and legal challenges over the decades. The current dispute is the latest chapter in a long and complex legal journey. It underscores the protracted nature of capital punishment cases. This specific legal battle over medical deactivation is not unique in the broader context of capital punishment. Similar issues have arisen in other states concerning inmates with complex medical needs. The intersection of medical ethics and execution protocols is a recurring challenge. The case raises fundamental questions about the state's responsibility to inmates. It probes the limits of what constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. The debate extends beyond Mr. Black to the broader principles of justice and humanity. Medical professionals often face ethical dilemmas when asked to participate in executions. Their professional codes typically prioritize preserving life and alleviating suffering. This conflict can lead to refusals to participate in certain aspects of the execution process. The legal system must navigate these complex ethical landscapes. Courts are often tasked with balancing state interests, inmate rights, and professional medical ethics. The Tennessee Supreme Court's decision will contribute to this evolving legal framework. The outcome of this appeal will have significant implications for correctional facilities nationwide. It will influence how states manage the medical needs of death row inmates. The case serves as a critical point of discussion for legal scholars, ethicists, and civil rights advocates. The public's attention is drawn to the intricacies of capital punishment through cases like Byron Black's. It prompts a deeper examination of the processes involved in state-sanctioned death. The debate continues over the most humane and legally sound methods of execution.